You got Ethan playing any scout team quarterback this week, preparing for Chase?
Ethan Garbers?
Yeah.
No, we don't. That's a good question. Ethan's got to get all his reps he can with our first and second unit. So, but Chase Artopius has done a really nice job for us, simulating everybody the entire year. So we feel confident that as good as we can. Obviously, he's not Chase Garbers, but at least they got the same first name. So.
Does Ethan give you any tips on what Chase can do?
No, no, and I wouldn't ask him that. They're not,
Okay.
That's not the, that's not the way we do things. Like, hey, what is your brother like, and all that stuff. It's we'll prepare for him like we prepare for all the other quarterbacks that we face this year. He's a talented player that they're playing well on offense. They had a really good game against Stanford last week. They run the ball really well, and he's part of the running game. He can affect the game with his feet, as I said earlier. I think he's the all-time leading rusher as a quarterback at Cal, and he's doing a really nice job in running their offense. And I think Bill Muskow's doing a really good job with their offense. So.
Cal's kind of come on in the last couple of weeks on offense, scored a lot of points. What have you seen from them in terms of getting a little more momentum?
I mean, obviously they had the little blip there where they didn't play, so they really, and then the week before that they played Arizona, they only scored 3 points. So they've only had one game back since they've been healthy, and that was against Stanford. So they were really balanced in that game. I thought they mixed the pass and the run really well. They also mixed their formations really well. They come out big personnel and run the ball and play action pass out of that, and then they could get multiple receivers on the field at the same time and spread things out. But if you do that, you got to be aware of Garbers as a runner. So I think they're doing a really nice job of mixing and matching and not letting you key in on one thing. They also run a ton of trick plays, so they kind of keep you on your toes that way. But I'm just happy for Justin. I talked to him earlier when they had one game where they only played with 40 scholarship players or something like that against Arizona, and then they had a game canceled. So the fact that he's got his full complement of players back that's what it's all about. You want to play people when they're at full strength. You don't want to play them when they're down. And it sounds like they have everybody back to practice now. We're going to get their best, and they're going to get our best.
Wilson Wilcox's teams have been really strong on defense, and it's really got there. So what do they do well on defense?
They're sound. Dustin's a really good coach, whether it was when he was at Wisconsin or Boise or Washington or wherever he's been. He's a defensive-minded head coach. And it always starts with defense with Justin. And Coach has actually worked with Justin at Cal a couple years ago too. So we've got an understanding of what they're doing. But they've changed a little bit in the last couple of years. Everybody always evolves. They're not the same that they were 4 or 5 years ago. They're changing slightly in terms of what they're doing. So, but he's always been known as one of the top defensive coaches out there.
You're obviously not worried about what happened in the past, but the last 3 years, the game after USC, you're 0-3. How do you prevent that kind of lull?
Don't worry about it. So don't talk about it. So. You can look at any metric you want and come up with a million different things of what's your record after day games, what's your record after. It just depends on who you're playing and what you do. So that's part of it. But there's not a lull, and I could tell if there was a lull from Monday's practice, and there was no lull on Monday. There was no lull on Tuesday. They've got the same energy and juice today. These kids love playing football, so that's not a concern of ours.
That's what I was going to ask. If you still feel that they're hyped up, this
Yeah,
game.
they're hyped up for every game they play this year. So.
Got any favorite Thanksgiving dishes?
Nah, whatever's served. I'm not a cook, so I don't get to dictate the menu. So we'll have a team Thanksgiving meal tonight for all of our guys, and then most of our kids from Southern California are going to get an opportunity to go home to their families, and then for the group that stays, we'll have a smaller meal for those guys. But our big Thanksgiving meal will be tonight, so we're excited about spending some time as a team tonight after our night meetings.
What makes the Cal run defense so dangerous? They're first, right before you guys. What do you see that
they're just solid. They're solid in their scheme, and they've got some really good players. They're tough, hard-nosed, physical guys that can attack. They're obviously, as we spoke to earlier, they're well coached. I think Pete Sermon and Justin do a really nice job with those guys in terms of where they are and what's going on with them. It's sound. You're not going to outflank them or out-scheme them. They've got answers for kind of what you do. And I think a lot of it is formation dictated. So if you come out and miss, they'll come out and miss. They're not just sitting in one front and saying, hey, there's some certain things you can do formationally to beat them, because I think they adapt to what you do. So there's flexibility within their system that allows them to kind of put their guys in the right spots. And they obviously have good personnel to execute what they want to execute. Justin's been there for a while. So I think he can recruit to what his scheme is, and he's done a really nice job of doing that from the defensive standpoint.
I hear what you're saying about focusing on the game ahead, but just a quick follow-up to what Mike asked. Not just the 0-3, but this program, since the Pac-12 switched so that the SC game wasn't the last game of the season, there was another game leading up to the conference championship. This program is 1-6 in those games since that started. There's no USC hangover in this program?
I mean, I wasn't here for those other ones, so it'd be very presumptuous of me to talk about that. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think everybody's trying to find a cause and a correlation. So, maybe we should just get a bye after the USC game. So and that's not what it's about. And that's not, if that was what it was about, then you would already know the outcome of the game, and we shouldn't play the game. So that's, I mean, again, you guys write narratives. We're practicing football on a Wednesday, so that part's, we haven't had any discussions about it, nor do we talk about things like that, because that goes back to the comment, and I use it all the time, it's true but useless, so it doesn't really affect us, and I don't know why I would ever bring that up with our guys, that this, 7 years ago, someone played USC and lost the game after the next week, so what are they on games after it rains? I don't know. I mean, you can use any statistic you want, but I don't know how that affects how we game plan or what we do. You turn the tape on, you look at Cal, they're a really good football team, and we have to be ready to play them in all three phases, and they're good in all three phases. So.
Saturday, with it being senior day, you've got obviously the 6-year seniors who have exhausted their eligibility, and they'll get their names announced, whatever kind of ceremony gets done. What process do you go through during the week with other seniors who have the ability to come back? What conversations get had about whether they're coming back?
Yeah, anybody
or not?
that wants to walk on senior day can walk on senior day.
Okay.
So that's anybody who walks on senior day, that's their option to walk on senior day. So that's available to anybody.
But it's not an indicator then that they're not coming back.
No, I mean, we had kids who walked on senior day last year and they came back. So, I mean, and I think Ethan Fernandez walked on 3 senior days and he's back. So it's a different world, with all the COVID, who gets what, are they going to allow waivers? There's a lot of different things. Some kids may have had an injury early in their career and they can actually apply for a medical red shirt. There's a lot of different things that go into eligibility. And this year, more than any, you're juggling a lot of things. So, there could be kids that walk this Saturday that play for us next year and they get to walk for 2 senior days. So we've had kids walk for 2 senior days before. It's a unique time for everybody. So, our job in the education process is to make sure everybody understands kind of where they are. Is there a waiver that's required? Is there a waiver that's not required? Because it's not an automatic. The only guys that get automatic back in from a COVID standpoint, from our understanding, were those 6-year seniors that could get the extra year. Then everyone else will have to apply for a waiver. But then they say it looks very encouraging. So we get all that information too. And we also have some 3rd-year kids that can leave and go to the draft. So that there's that whole other dynamic that you have to deal with. So there'll be a lot of roster balls in the air, so to speak, this year more than any other year, and that's the same for every college program throughout the country that you're going to have to manage, because you still have to get under 85 scholarships. So that's another component to it that I think is where are you from that standpoint? Getting back to 85. This is the only year you could be over, and we were over a couple because of the Ethans and the Paul Grattons and the Q Knights of the world. There's a lot of different things, but there could be some kids that walk on Saturday. So the way we did it is anybody that wants to walk on Saturday as a senior is allowed to. If there's eligibility remaining, you still will figure out what's the best interest of you, in terms of where you are and how you're going to do it. So
It sounds like a full-time job, just managing the numbers with the NCAA and what their systems are.
Yeah, but it's the same for every school. So we all understand what we have to do, and we gotta, at some point in time, you can only be at 85 from a scholarship standpoint, and you can be at, I think it's 110 as a roster standpoint. And roster management this year is just something that's probably at the top of everybody's list, just because of what went on with COVID and COVID waivers and things like that. And then throw in the transfer portal, which I think is going to blow up on Sunday. Because every FBS school will be done playing on Sunday. The only schools left to be the teams playing in the championship games. But there's been numerous schools that have had 7, 8, 9 players go in during the season. So I would imagine everybody's going to have some kids going after the season, because the one thing that the student athletes understand now is that they're instantly eligible. Before, you would have to graduate to become instantly eligible, or you'd have to go down to be instantly eligible. If you were going to transfer from FBS to FBS, you'd have to sit. And so now you don't have to sit. So I think I think on Sunday you're going to see, it just happened in the FCS. There's a ton of FCS kids that have gone into the portal because their season ended last week and the playoffs start this week. So I think the same thing will happen on, to add to the roster management, is the whole management of the transfer part of it. I think is going to be, probably come to the forefront. I think here coming on Sunday, because you're going to see a ton of names going.
Do you think a lot of coaches get in the habit of having to wake up every morning and make sure all their players are still there?
Well, we check in every day and make sure they're here for practice. But I don't worry about it here. We haven't had a kid go in the portal, and I think it's a testament to these kids and the environment that we have here. But then after the season, and I understand it, if a kid's not playing and he has the opportunity and doesn't have to sit and can maybe go somewhere else and play, you have 4 years of eligibility left. Do you want to do it as a scout squad player for 4 years, or do you want to do it somewhere where you have a chance to get on the field? That's an individual decision that kids will make. And for us, our whole mindset's always been that if that's your decision, how can we help you? There's, I think, a certain way to go about it. There's certain players that are here, but they're here because of our relationship with the head coach. Brian Kelly called me personally about Jordan and had a great conversation with him. David Shaw talked to me about Obi. And I talked to David Cutcliffe about Britton Brown. So I think sometimes people look at transfers as a bad thing, but our job is to help our players be successful. And if someone feels that they can be successful somewhere else, then how can we help you do that? I think that the days of transferring and, he's leaving your school, so he's disloyal to you, that's not the case. It's kids want to play. And if there's an opportunity for a kid that's not playing for us that could play maybe somewhere else, maybe at a Mountain West school or another school, then I have no problem calling Brent Brennan and saying, hey, Brent, I got a kid that, has expressed interest in your school. Do you have an opening, or what can you do? How can I advise him? I think that's what our role as coaches is, because whether they spend a day here or whether they spend 4 years here, our job is to help them. And if they feel that trying to go play at another school is beneficial, then we'll assist in any way possible. So.
I think, Coach.